Hello, my name is Ben.
And my name is Ebony, and today we are going to be discussing the sterilization project that was organized by the Eugenics Board of North Carolina that lasted from 1933 all the way up to 1976. First of all, what is eugenics? Well, eugenics is a way of improving genetics of the human population. Eugenics was created by Francis Galton, who wanted to fix humanity by eliminating disabled and mentally ill people and only allowing the healthy and mentally sane individuals to reproduce.
This sterilization process was achieved in a number of different medical procedures. Some of these included castration, or the removal of the male testes, tubal ligation, or the tying of the female fallopian tubes in order to prevent conception, and even hysterectomies, or the physical removal of the female uterus, in order to completely eliminate the chance of any egg fertilization. All of these procedures were not only degrading and humiliating to the individuals involved, but also came with a large amount of physical discomfort and damage.
In 1933, the North Carolina General Assembly authorized sterilization as a lawful practice and so created the Eugenics Board of North Carolina. The goal of this project was to decrease the chance of conceiving a mentally or physically inferior individual or one who is considered to be mentally or physically handicapped by sterilizing people who are already considered to be one of these things. The majority of the individuals who underwent the sterilization procedures were either African American or others who were physically and mentally disabled.
The majority of influence for this project came from previous prejudices and scientific ideas. The fact that the majority of patients and subjects in this project were African American suggests how African Americans were still heavily segregated and looked down on by other members of society at this time. The eugenics aspect of it, which was an idea created in 1883 by Francis Galton, had also been a prevailing concept, as in 1907, the first eugenic sterilization law was created in the United States, in Jeffersonville, Indiana. This project continued until its termination in 1977.
In addition to targeting African Americans and physically or mentally disabled individuals, the North Carolina Eugenics Board also focused sterilization processes on inmates or patients in publicly funded institutions that were judged by authorities at those facilities as being feeble-minded or mentally defected. As years progressed, the Eugenics Board of North Carolina even began considering using sterilization as a method to combat poverty and wellness costs by taking the ability to have children away from low-income families.
The Eugenics Board of North Carolina had a number of justifications for why sterilization was a good idea. The board used Supreme Court cases that supported eugenics, such as Buck versus Bell, to justify the legality of their practices, although many healthcare professionals questioned this throughout the years. They also argued that both for the private citizen and the public, as a result of costs that could spawn as a result of future childbirths, that eugenics was a sound and moral way to proceed. They followed this up with points such as that sterilization was only used for preventing parenthood. It in no way unsexed the individual at hand, and it was not a punishment, but rather a form of protection.
Until the 1970s, the Eugenics Board of North Carolina remained to be a structurally sound department despite questions that had been brought up by the physicians and members of the general public.
The events of the 1970s were what ultimately led to the collapse of the board. Some members of society began speaking out to protest that the action of these Eugenics Board of North Carolina violated parts of the law, such as Article 25, Sections 1 and 2 of the UN Charter. In 1973, the board was transformed into the Eugenics Commission, and the members of this were appointed by the governor. In 1974, the legislature transferred to the judicial system the responsibility for any proceedings. After a number of detrimental court cases in 1976 that questioned the morality of the sterilization project, the Eugenics Commission was finally terminated in 1977 by the state legislature.
In the end, It was discovered that over 7,500 individuals had fallen victim to sterilization by the Eugenics Board of North Carolina. In this respect, the sterilization project still has a huge influence in the lives of many people even today. It was not until 2003 that the North Carolina legislature repealed the laws that allowed sterilization of individuals, although after 1977, there are no reported cases of sterilization that had any correlation with the Eugenics Board.
And it was not until 2013 that North Carolina passed legislation ordering for the monetary compensation of those who had undergone sterilization. One woman, Elaine Riddick, has dealt with the troubles of having been sterilized for years. When she was only 13 years old, she was raped by a 20-year-old man and became pregnant as a result. After discovering this, Riddick's social worker pushed her grandmother, of who Riddick was living with at the time, to sign a contract for sterilization. Being illiterate, she signed with a simple X and had no idea what situation she was putting Elaine into. After having the baby at the age of 14, Riddick underwent the procedure and didn't learn until years later what the procedure actually meant for her. She has mentioned that the procedure has riddled her with failed relationships, physical suffering, and emotional trauma. Her story was never looked at by legislators until the hearings of the NC Justice for Sterilization Victims were held.
Thank you so much for watching our presentation on the Eugenics Board of North Carolina. We hope you enjoyed it and learned something.
Here are a list of some of our sources we used to formulate this project. Thanks and goodbye.